Okay, cousins. So I decided that I was going to bring back Face Facts Friday, but it's going to be the book edition. We're breaking down Denmark Vesey. These are going to be my palettes I'm using. Highlighter and setting powder in Nefertari and Kalari from Juvia's Place. Primer and setting spray from Beauty Bakery. Foundation and concealer from Juvia's Place. Lipstick from Juvia's Place and liner from Sugar Bee. All black women owned, by the way. Let's get into chapter 1, shall we? The Men from Barbados. So our chapter opens in April of 1670, where it talks about the Carolina warship that was sailing for about 6 months from Barbados to the Charleston harbor. Now on this ship were 20 white Barbadians and 1 black slave. The goal was to get rich off of slavery, and in the beginning of South Carolina's inception, slavery was cash cow. So interesting fact about Charleston, 132,000 slaves were purchased and sold through that area in the United States. They made up that much of the enslaved populations in the United States. It is for this reason that 1 in 4 Black Americans can trace their ancestry to Charleston. Interesting. Barbados was established 50 years before the Carolina ship arrived in South Carolina. It was the first English colony to establish black slavery in the New World and to work sugar plantations. So in order to get them to be forced into work, you would find that Barbadians would flog enslaved Africans, they would brand them, they would mutilate them as well. Now, what's interesting about the brutality of the Barbadians is it gave them the control that they needed throughout the English colonies. So they contributed half of refined sugar that was sent to Europe from Barbados. And then the population increased to 46,000 blacks and whites on the island. On the colony. And what's really crazy is that there were only 62 families controlling all of this. Only 62. Okay, so because it was 62 families that was running everything, of course, they were able to generate all of the wealth. And all of the wealth that they generated actually came from black enslavement, like all of it. And that was what brought wealth to Barbados during that time. Even though they had the highest mortality rates in the West. So it didn't matter at the time that, we are flogging and branding these black people just so they can run the sugar cane plantation. We got to get our money somehow. It doesn't matter if they die, we're just going to go get some more, which is what they did. And because they brought in so much wealth, they went up to England and was like, listen, y'all want to make some money? This is how you do it. But first, we need to get some land in the New World. We need to get a little bit more land. So this is how they were able to finagle their way with England to get a colony known as Carolinas. So John Locke drew up this constitution, right? That said, y'all have religious freedom for blacks and people without color. Another day, another shady form of drama. But anyway, he used this constitution to write this up for black people as well as people without color. 150 acres was granted to the Barbadians, and they brought over 100 enslaved Africans to start cultivating the land. And because they were so grateful for this land that was stolen and gifted to them by England, who had no business giving it to them, they named it after Charles II. Because what else would you do when you would take stolen land? Now, this was so attractive to Europeans everywhere. So they brought in people from England and Ireland, and they were gifted slaves. So whenever they tell you that the Irish didn't own slaves, remember this story. But they also enslaved Native Americans. Carolina was one of the few colonies that was responsible for enslaving the most Native Americans of all the 13 colonies. The Irish were not enslaved. Just wanted to make sure we threw that out there. So get this, Native Americans were swapped out for enslaved Africans between between Charleston and Barbados. So they used enslaved Africans to cultivate the land for indigo, rice, and cotton in Charleston. So they swapped them out so they can trade in Native Americans to hunt and fish in Barbados. Sounds like there's some lazy people going around over here not doing the work themselves, but I digress. I think it's interesting that every single colonizer that came to Charleston brought their own enslaved African, because they were not doing the work themselves. Now, of course, the Barbadians actually taught those Europeans who were immigrating to Charleston how to manage their slaves. So they created a slave law, because what else would you do? They authorized branding, whipping, nose splitting, and other forms of torture against enslaved Africans who were violent against their masters. So if you decided that you were sick of being treated like an enslaved person and you deserved human rights, they passed a law to ensure that you were tortured for being ungrateful, for being treated like a slave. And if you rebelled, like starting an insurrection, you were put to death. We're going to get to Denmark Vesey's plan in a minute. It's important to know what he was up against. By the second generation of Barbadian arrival, enslaved Africans were the majority. Now, I know some people would say, if they were the majority, why wouldn't they kill their masters? Understand, these people were being tortured. So there was also the psychological aspect of slavery. Besides, our generation is not causing insurrection, so please don't come for our ancestors. Now get this, these new Charlestonians started to prefer saltwater blacks, meaning they wanted their slaves to come directly from Africa, because they feared with the increase of the black community, there would be more cause for an insurrection from the enslaved Africans. Please remember, at the same time, Haiti has also had their revolution. So this is scary to people without color. Forgot about my blush. Now get this, colonizers were so scared of what was going to happen to them for enslaving Africans, they freaked out whenever they saw black people, enslaved Africans, having praise and worship, singing, dancing, gathering in groups. So It's interesting how they banned this, but this is supposed to be a Christian nation. No, it's not. They lied. It's not a Christian nation. It wasn't what the founding fathers wanted, but today they like to claim it's a Christian nation. But they didn't want black people worshiping and praising. Now, there was this place called Brian's Plantation, and the owner prophesied that there's this black Messiah who was supposed to rise up and attempt an insurrection. So Sunday, September 9th of 1739, the Stono Rebellion occurred. And this had them all messed up. Do you hear me? So this enslaved African by the name of Jimmy seized this store, stole weapons, and began beheading people without color who were slave owners and their children and their families. Why? Because they believed that you should cut evil off at the top and work your way down to the bottom. Their goal was to make it down to Spanish Florida, where they could have their freedom, or go towards the river to catch a ship back to Africa for their freedom. However, the majority that tried to cross the river did not survive. They were murdered. Some drowned. Some were interrogated and then executed. But just so you know, this sparked many other rebellions. So the Stono Rebellion solidified the fears of colonizers and really pushed them to make stricter laws for enslaved Africans. So you'll see how they start to take place as we move on through the next couple of chapters. Let's move on to September 24th of 1783. Two ships arrived in Charleston by the name of Polly and Eagle, and they were carrying 104 enslaved Africans from the coast of Africa and the Caribbean. The captain of this ship was Joseph Vesey. And I'm gonna leave it right there because we're gonna go into chapter 2 and I'll explain a little bit more. But I wanna know, on the background of Barbados and how they were starting to establish Charleston, what are your thoughts? Did you know about the establishment of Charleston? I know some of you are from Charleston who follow me, so you might be privy to the history. I know I was not before reading this book. So I'll be giving you more information from Denmark Vesey's book. This is it. It's on my website. You can definitely purchase it from my bookshop. You can read along with us. I will be putting out more information as the story goes along, but I'm excited to be back into reading and breaking down the Denmark Vesey story, and I hope to break it down some more with you and love to hear your questions. Be sure to like, follow, share. I am on YouTube, Fanbase, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Love you guys. See y'all for the next chapter.